life is just a biological experience. So you need to make it fun as well. So if you don't have to worry too much about your money, Bitcoin is not an IQ test because I saw it everywhere. So I created a tweet. It's an ego test. So I think like being on a Bitcoin standard to me now, and now I'm like already like 3 years further than I was in 2022. Now I can honestly say that I feel free all the time. Of course, they will experience that pain that we just discussed. And then they have to really do the work, like the proof of work. They really have to do it. And some will do it. And the others will probably go back to their fiat mindset. But still, I hope that the average person still finds someone in their surrounding that tells them, yes, that's all fine. Do what you need to do, but also reserve your spot on the base layer in case it catches on. All the value that is going to be created by all the intelligence that we are going to create, it only makes sense that Bitcoin will suck up that value because it is indeed the only thing that cannot be copied digitally. But for God's sake, stay yourself, right? Stay close to yourself because that's the other scarce thing that you can only be certain of that nobody can actually copy.
Hi, Marc. How are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Yes, everything is more than fine, I would say. How's your life, Robin?
How's my life? Oh, I think I've never got that question. How are you doing? I get a lot like what's up and all of like how's your life? I guess it's way better than I ever expected. That would be my general answer.
Nice. And would you say like that's on all the aspects that are important to you right now, or were you focused mainly on business while you were giving the answer?
No, actually, it's in all aspects. If you think about like all aspects of life, if you see like workout, health, diet, if you see business wise, if you see relationship, like honestly, it hasn't. I mean, I'm very young. I'm 26, but it has never been in all aspects as good as it is now. But yeah, there's a ton to improve. And I guess that's always the case with Bitcoiners. They are really hard on doing that. How was the journey for you? Like getting into health and getting into shape, getting relationships right, I mean, you're a father also, you travel the world with your kids. That's really inspiring. I saw that story before the podcast and I was like, hey, that's really nice.
Yeah, it was funny because I instantly wanted to say it's funny what Bitcoin does to you, right? While you were giving your answer. And it was the same for me, I suppose. Like it started around 2018 that was introduced into Bitcoin. But like most people, I didn't fully grasp it. I was only thinking about how to become a little bit more richer. I was always good in creating value. That was my background. I studied psychology. And I was able to use that psychology as a study into my sales products. So I was training sales agents and I was helping companies to increase their sales output, more input, don't matter how you say it exactly. And so I learned pretty early on how to create value, but I was never really focused or aware of how to maintain value or even like let it grow without you actually doing something. So that was how I was looking at it for the first time. And then later on, of course, like I think most people who are actually interested in creating a better world that have also been introduced to Bitcoin, they go down that route. Whereas the quote unquote others, and I don't want to like say anything bad about them, but they are more focused into like make as much fiat profit as possible and therefore stay too long in the shitcoin industry. So this all created a path for me that I was able to buy back more and more time while I was like learning about Bitcoin, studying Bitcoin, and it ended up into me and my wife and my kids. We, as a family, selling everything in the Netherlands and travel the world.
That's awesome. Maybe before we get started with all the topics, give the viewers a little bit of a background who you are and why you are in general excited about Bitcoin.
Yes. So, like I said, I have a background in psychology. So I was always interested in everything with regard to the mind. So mindset. And I created a podcast, the Marc My Word Show in Dutch. And that was all about leadership from a specific mindset. So I had lots of guests talking about stuff like that. And I think that while I was interviewing everyone, I was more and more intrigued by what it actually meant to have a biological experience, a purposeful driven life, while also at the same time being free, right? So those things usually don't come together that much because people are like being sucked up by whatever they do. So with that background, I also, of course, had my own business in sales, just like I said, and I was able to create lots of value, therefore make lots of money. But I wasn't particularly getting more happy. And for someone that is actually interested in being free and thinking like consciously about having a nice, fun biological experience that we call life. And I'm tired every day, and I'm drinking alcohol. I'm even using drugs with my wife. We did stuff even though we already had a kid. We were only thinking about the weekends, about having dinners with friends, then drink too much wine, go to bed late, and then be exhausted at Saturday and Sunday, and then pick yourself up again and start the week on Monday again. And of course, because I'm like someone who like always continues, and if he says he's do something, I will do it. So we kept on working, and in the end, I ended up with an organization. It's called Awake Origins, and it was a spiritual based organization that like wanted to help entrepreneurs to create more from the inside out, like instead of from the outside in. So what has the world been telling you that you are, and like switch that into who you really are and produce from there, from your heart. And that was for me at the same time that I was introduced into Bitcoin. So to me, that was not coincidence. So I was becoming more and more aware. I would say spiritual, more interested. And so then I came to the point that my wife was crying in the car because she hated her work. I was exhausted every day, even though we had lots of money. So we made more money we're buying more stupid stuff. We're not buying back our time, even though I was interviewing people about like mindset, being free, being happy, and it just didn't align anymore. And that was the point in time that I was okay, like we have to do something different.
That's big. And I think you probably learn a lot about how to actually be free, and there is this big mind shift coming. I think that more and more people are aware that time is the true wealth and not like material things. I think that's changing a lot. And maybe that's just because like my friends and my bubble of people that I have around think now like that. But I think overall in society, we hope to get that done, that like having more time is the wealth and not having more things. Of course, to spend good time, you need some things, but not as many as some might believe. Do you see that like as an overall trend, and is kind of Bitcoin even like accelerating that because it emphasizes having more Bitcoin, having more just having more financial energy saved up and not just into like a car or a house or whatever?
Yeah, well, I definitely see the trend happening. So to answer the first question, like this global shift of consciousness, like this organization is growing rapidly as well, and there are more of them, right? That types of organizations. And when I go to an event, it gets bigger and bigger. So we started with like 20 entrepreneurs, and now sometimes there are like 300 entrepreneurs, and they are all in it for the same reason, sort of. But me sharing there, of course, me being a Bitcoiner, me talking about Bitcoin in those environments is not instantly a click for most of the entrepreneurs. Because they have experienced so much negativity in their quote unquote old world, in their path as entrepreneur, while they were creating businesses, all the stress, all the drama that was coming into that same process. They sometimes even view money as one of the bad guys. So when I talk about Bitcoin as being a new form of money, they instantly have this association of that's bad then as well. So when I do give my presentations in those moments, I really have to work hard to get them there. But once they once they are connected, and that's important because most people in the real world are not connected to their heart, right? They are just like being that NPC kind of energy, just going zombie wise through their whole lives. Ignorance is bliss. Most people are trying to stay unaware of all the things that are going on, but those entrepreneurs aren't, right? They are there for a reason. And so when they have that connection with their heart, they can see that from my, like when I'm presenting this Bitcoin story, it's not about getting rich, right? They actually feel vibration wise that it's about something else. Of course, number go up technology. Of course, you can get more wealthy. Of course, you can use the money to buy back your time, but it's way more than that. And if they understand that this is part of this global consciousness awakening, then they understand, like, if we change the base layer where we are all dependent on, we basically have more time in the Maslow pyramid to actually think about that stuff that we are talking about too. Like, how can we be more happy? How can I be more productive? How can I be more productive from my heart? And I see those things happening. So yes, the trend is already there. And at the same time, of course, what you said as well, it feels like an echo chamber still, even if I'm like not in the Bitcoin community or the Bitcoin events, but in those more spiritual events. I see people get connected and I see them like rationally getting there. So emotionally and spiritually, they see, okay, Marc's speaking truth here. However, they still need to go rationally through the process that it's not bad. Money is not bad per se. It's the money that we use that is creating all this shit that we are experiencing on the world.
It's so weird that because we are finance people in general. Like if you talk about Bitcoin, you're in the category of finance educators. And it's so weird when we have those Bitcoin people. Like if you're on a stock podcast, it's a very different experience. If you're like on any other finance related podcast or real estate podcast. But on a Bitcoin podcast, we can talk about raising kids, about diet, about all those absolutely non-related topics on the surface to money, which is really interesting for me. I thought about that. If I had just a podcast about real estate and I'm now at like 540, it's probably at the time where you digest to other topics, where you like take stocks into account, take crypto, the general term of that, into account, and like get more things in there. I pretty much stayed on Bitcoin. I'm pretty much like just on Bitcoin because I just talk with Bitcoiners, and I would say around like 40 or 30% of the conversation time is now actually not about Bitcoin. It's just about like this health and diet and mindset and about playing an instrument and all those adjacent topics that have a connection but don't have a connection. And if you get this thing of like, oh, I have this foundational thing figured out because I don't have to fear that my money is getting devalued every second, all of a sudden you have the time and the energy and the mental clarity to actually think about all those other things. It's a weird place to be, man.
Yeah, people often forget. Like, so what you see mostly is like you have this camp of unconscious people. They are just working every day for this fiat gain, and because fiat becomes more and more worthless over time, they just have to keep harder for less and less. So it consumes them, right? So they don't even know. Then you have this group that slowly gets there, or this group that just have enough fiat money. And so this group, because they have more money and or are more conscious, they have more time to think about these things that we are also thinking about. But they are not doing it from a Bitcoin mindset. They are still doing it from a fiat mindset. So what are they then going to ask themselves? What's life actually about? It feels empty, right? So they actually experience in a conscious way, it feels empty. And then they go look for purpose, right? So they are going to spend that money. They are going to travel the world, or they are going to do something new, sell their business and start something new. And it's always about that question. Okay, but what's then my purpose? Because now they are higher up in this Maslow pyramid, and it's always the question, what's my purpose? And I always have to think about this image that I saw in one of those books of my kids. Like, and the question is it about the journey, or is it about the destination? And then this other animal responds like, no, right? It's about the company. So if you like slow down a second and think about that, the magic in that answer is like, if we take it back to the introduction about life is just a biological experience. So you need to make it fun as well. So if you don't have to worry too much about your money, whereas, like you said, if you just simply like create value and save it in Bitcoin, you will have a life with less worry than when you are saving it in fiat. So now you have more time. And instead of then like actively go and search for meaning in life or for purpose, just have fun. You were mentioning like play an instrument or play with your kids, like be a kid again. It's the most fun ever. If I'm going outside with my daughters and I'm like, not actually being a dad, but just like being a friend of them and just do the same games that they are doing, I actually feel happier. If I just walk outside, like people say always, like touch some grass. Yeah, but it actually works. Like walk outside and if you are aware, you come back and I'm like, yes, I'm more happy right now. So it's not only about, well, I need to do something really important in this world. No, just enjoy as well. That's, of course, you can do something really beautiful because that's also a good return on investment, energy wise, happiness, network wise. Definitely go out and do it, but also just have fun. And whatever that may be, and do this as much as possible and you will be happier. So sometimes I just think about that as well. And that's why I think through Bitcoiners, you can talk about those topics like being a father, being a friend, being a brother, playing an instrument, eating healthy, and do stuff like that.
How would you describe the psychology of the Bitcoin community with that whole ego death topic, where you kind of have to overjump that first hurdle that you didn't buy Bitcoin when you first saw it, and you have to kind of admit that you're wrong and all those things? How would you analyze the community as you mentioned you had a background in psychology?
Yeah, it's an amazing example because it feels like you first have to like pass that test to even become a Bitcoiner. So your ego has to be put aside or set aside before you can even call yourself a Bitcoiner, because somewhere in the past you have been wrong about Bitcoin, about dismissing it or for not buying it or not looking into it or only seeing it as an investment instead of what it actually can be for society. So that makes a lot of sense to me, that it's simply some type of ego test. I think I was one of the first who tweeted it, like Bitcoin is not an IQ test, because I saw it everywhere. So I created a tweet. It's an ego test. And later on, I saw like everyone was thinking the same as that we were talking about right now. And then I think I saw also the creation of the Ego Death Capital of Jeff Booth and Lynn Alden and stuff. I mean, this makes so much sense, right? It's not about you anymore. It has never been about you. So if you can set that aside, life will be so much easier. But then again, to be honest, if you then look deeper into Bitcoin, you see lots of ego still being there, right? It's not per se in the interviews that we have, and the names that I just mentioned, Lynn Alden and Jeff Booth, to me are real examples of not putting their ego into whatever conversation they are having. But we still see some people in the Bitcoin community who are still like, I would almost say secretly, from their fiat mindset, right? Like they get Bitcoin, but they are still into that fiat game. And it's not a criticism of any kind. It's just like an observation I make.
And I mean, there is the Bitcoin community is now so big. I mean, there are people that are directly or indirectly in the Bitcoin community that are only focusing on strategy. It's like, yeah, they're all about Bitcoin, but they're only buying strategy. They're not getting the freedom grab technology. They're only getting the number grab technology. So it's like, are they in the Bitcoin community? Like, hard to say, right? They're working in Bitcoin. They're contributing something for Bitcoin, but it's not it's not the core ethos. But then it's also like very arrogant of us saying like, oh, we know what the core ethos of Bitcoin is, and you're not a Bitcoiner, and you're a Bitcoiner, exactly. which also is a weird thing, right?
I would say, Robin, that sometimes you can see that someone is a Bitcoiner without this person owning Bitcoin. It depends on how we would define being a Bitcoiner. But I would say that if someone were to invest in strategy with some type of vision and strategy underneath it, they would probably say to you and to me, yeah, but I do this to eventually get more Bitcoin. We have heard shitcoiners saying that all the time, right? So let's pause that argument for a second, but they could still have a vision, and they could still, like, mathematically, rationally see Bitcoin going times 2 in a period that MicroStrategy goes times 3. And if they want to use that money to buy back their time, to be there for their kids the year after, right? You could argue that this is like a Bitcoin mindset and not a fiat mindset, right? So I think we have some room there to discuss what would be then the ideal Bitcoiner. But if you actually come back to the core, and that's freedom and sovereignty, you actually need to own the real thing, because that's the only way. So that would be my 2 cents.
What does it mean for someone like you to live on a Bitcoin standard?
Yeah. So what I would like to add, at least, is that it's like, so you have the Bitcoin standard on the one hand side, but you still need that mindset part, because you actually have to have a narrative in your brain that is on repeat, that is not destructive. Because if you are on a Bitcoin standard and almost all your family capital is in there, and you are like me, I was traveling the world for 4 years, you see your capital going down in that bear market, right? You see it going down to 16, 17, 18K-ish. And if you, like I experienced, that I had to work really hard and train my mind to not get negative. And to, like, it was not that I wanted to sell Bitcoin because I knew I had to buy extra, right? That was the point. I was trying to create more fiat to buy extra during those times. But it was rather difficult to not get it affect your state of being. And that's eventually what it's all about. So it depends a little bit on, I think, do you have enough income in whatever way to, if that situation happens like a bear market or like a heavy drawdown, that you still have this happy energy in your brain, and not that destruction in your brain that you have made wrong decisions or that you do something you shouldn't have done. Because that's what to be honest, I did experience that type of energy. So I think, like, being on a Bitcoin standard, to me now, and now I'm like already like 3 years further than I was in 2022. Now I can honestly say that I feel free all the time, like all the time. But someone else could say, yeah, but there hasn't been a real heavy drawdown, right, Marc? So what happens if it goes back to 30 or 40K? True, we have to experience it once more. That said, though, like, I can actually see that when I'm now in the Netherlands and 99% is in a fiat mindset on a fiat standard, that I am way more free than the average person that I come across. And like in the morning, I go to the gym, I CrossFit, or I do some other workout. I really have to find others that also feel that amount of freedom to, like, have a coffee, to have a real conversation, instead of everyone like being in that hurry, going to their job to make sure that they make enough money again, or because they are not free because they work for a boss or whatever. So those two things I experience, it's mainly positive for us as a family to have been living on a Bitcoin standard for so long, but still, like, we have to also think about the disclaimers that I just mentioned.
It's interesting. It's interesting when we think about the last 3 years and what happened. Kind of, we haven't had a real drawdown. It's kind of going up since 3 years. And the major thing for me that happened is kind of, we have so many institutional players now in, and this whole thing. I always bring up that example of, we went from a jet ski to an aircraft carrier. Yeah. In 2011, we were like a small jet ski that just like jumping in the ocean, and it was going up and down and probably turning around a lot. Yeah. Now this whole thing is so much more stable, so much bigger, so much more powerful. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we're still like a small fish, but we are a lot more stable than like 10 years ago. So with that being said, I just don't think we will get to do this major drawdowns anymore. Like maybe 40-50%, that's probably still possible. But I I can't see a major downturn with so much institutional adoption, with so much heavy Bitcoin buyers. And then what does this mean for freedom? What does it mean if our money mindset does not only shift, but also the foundational layer is getting more and more stable and more secure? This also gets better for sovereignty. This also gets better for the freedom and psychology of the people. So I think the last 3 years has been just amazing for Bitcoin, and we're still just getting started with all the things. That's a weird thing. You always say like, we have come so far, but like we have like 99% of the way still to go. It's like it's a weird balance we have to take.
Yeah, you just hope that people are not getting sidelined, because it's very interesting to also see like the BTC, the Bitcoin treasury companies, and doing what they are doing, the heavy work that the work that they are lifting for the institutional Bitcoin adoption. I do believe that some people might be sidelined or get sidelined and not like reserve their spot on the Bitcoin protocol base layer, right? So for that sovereignty, you hope that people, yes, we are very happy that this is all happening. And yes, they will probably also make sure that we don't have this heavy drawdown like we've seen in the past. Perhaps even, of course, I like all the data that check on chain. What's his name?
James Checkmatey.
Yes, well, he puts it beautifully most of the time, and all his on-chain data is very interesting to watch, because it's rather easy that if we don't have this euphoria phase, we'll probably also won't have like this heavy drawdown. I'm very interested though that if we might go suddenly to 200K or suddenly to 250, well, what could happen then? Because then it makes sense that we also have a drawdown of at least 50%. So if then people get in and they put too much money of their family capital at 180, 190, 220, and we get back to 100 or even lower, of course, they will experience that pain that we just discussed. And then they have to really do the work, like the proof of work. They really have to do it. And some will do it. And the others will probably go back to their fiat mindset and just say again, like Bitcoin is not the answer. I still hope that if we get this stairway up, like because of the institutional adoption, and when there is a correction, they will step in and buy and blah, 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 that people see what's happening, because retail is not aware at this point in time. Right? Like your listeners probably are already all Bitcoiners, but the most retailers around us, like if Bitcoin goes slowly to 150 and then slowly to 200, to them, it's like only like an increase of 20%, of 30%, of 40%. So they won't notice. They only notice like quick moves into the Bitcoin network. That was what was attracting retail in the past. And now nobody cares. So I'm a little bit afraid, and it's like, it's not bad for us per se, but I'm a little bit afraid that most people stay sidelined because of this slow, gradual adoption if we stay out of that euphoria phase. What are your thoughts on that?
It's super interesting because we know Google Trends and all those things. Yeah. We are at an all-time high right now as we're recording this, and when you look at Google Trends, we are at like 15, 20%. If you look at YouTube search, because the argument always comes up, like people don't Google anymore, but people still watch YouTube videos. Even with your YouTube's things, there's like 30% or something like that from the previous like 2017 high. In 2017, we had a price of 20,000. Now we have like almost 120,000. So like a lot more. And then if you consider not only the price, but also the market capitalization, it's not like 5 times bigger. It's like 10 times bigger than back then. Yeah. And then you have this interesting discussion of, okay, we also need a lot more capital to move this thing up. So like up and down, it just needs a lot more capital. And people are now screaming in the comments saying, oh, like I always hear like here a billion buy, here trillions coming in. Like, why is it not moving? Yeah. Because it's bigger. Like if we just had like a few of those companies that are now buying Bitcoin at the same volume, buying Bitcoin in 2015, Bitcoin would have jumped like crazy high. But Bitcoin is a lot bigger now.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of time till those cycles and all those things will break. I think like every model will break eventually. And the best thing you can just do is like, buy DCA hodl in there. I go more and more away from this hodl meme because I spent my Bitcoin now.
Yeah.
So I just like buy it and sell it depending on like where my fear stack is. I just try to keep like 100% of Bitcoin. That's kind of my overall thoughts, but I do think there's a big change this cycle, which just means retail is right now not as interested in Bitcoin because institutional people are buying, and we're no longer a hype asset. We are a normal asset now. We're like very Bitcoin is slowly becoming the asset that's just going up and is the best performing asset over time, but in a more and more boring way. So we kind of lose the gamblers and the degens that just like try to make that crazy moves, which is, I think, very positive, honestly.
I think so too. I think that the degens and the gamblers or the speculators, they perhaps move to the Bitcoin treasury companies. So that will like probably suck up a lot of that volatility and suck up a lot of that like speculation. Because because of course I have this like Bitcoin community behind me, and where in the Netherlands where we do all kinds of things, but all around and centered around Bitcoin. And there are a few members in my community that also are a member in a more traditional investment community. And there they've always dismissed Bitcoin, like always. Like the facilitators there, they are just hating Bitcoin because it's a scam, because it's all speculation, blah, blah, blah. But now that these Bitcoin treasury companies are there and they are like going ×2, ×3, ×4, whatever, now they're suddenly all interested. And now they think it's okay to invest a portion of their portfolio in that stuff. So I think this was money that previously wasn't coming to Bitcoin anyways, and now it's coming, and we are all profiting from it. But still, I hope that the average person still finds someone in their surrounding that tells them, yes, that's all fine, do what you need to do, but also reserve your spot on the base layer in case it catches on, right? We already know it's catching on, but I think this could be very awesome for people that they at least have like 1.25 Bitcoin or 1.5 Bitcoin as a family going into this transition to this digital economy with the total AI revolution that's going to create so much additional value that also is going to be sucked up by Bitcoin. It's going to be a crazy period, I think.
I'm curious on your thoughts on AI impact on Bitcoin, but first, have you ever met someone that got Bitcoin, is really convinced of it, and has the self-custody and kind of went away from it? Like, have you ever seen someone like actually in person that kind of went away again from it and kind of sold it or like exchanged it for something else?
No, almost like I would say no. Like someone who was like deeply convinced about Bitcoin and already had it in cold storage, multi-sig type of person. No. That said, though, I see that they have difficulty now also within my community, and that's not a bad thing per se, but sometimes they see other shiny objects, and because Bitcoin becomes a little bit more boring than they were used to, because they of course have experienced this drawdown to 16 or 18K, but were convinced, so bought a lot of extra, and therefore they are now sitting on ×5, ×6, whatever. And they now see, of course, Bitcoin was, I think, above 100K in December, and it's now like 7 months later, and it's still around that same number, right? Of course, it's stronger now than back then, and it's less hype now, and it's more quiet, so it's more, right? It's more strong, but they still are very interested in double their money or triple their money. So I don't know if they sell Bitcoin from cold storage or did they just use new fiat that they've made that month to buy the Bitcoin treasury companies or to buy other stuff. Like, for example, the AI revolution is also gaining a lot of traction, and it's very difficult, I think, to invest in that, but we can talk about that later. So yeah, So I do see it, but like the real Bitcoin maxi that we see in the Bitcoin events, almost never.
The first time I ever made any money, I got myself from that money a watch. And ever since then, I collect timepieces to remember times where I achieved some milestone. That's why I got the Bitcoin 2025 edition when I went to my first ever American Bitcoin conference. So for me, the Bitcoin watches from Coin Vigilante represents the time that we are living in. For every person that wears a Bitcoin watch, I know they are representing sound money to the outside world. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. I know how big of a hurdle it can be to have self-custody, but it's so freaking important to make that first step. We have to make sure it's as easy and simple as possible. And that's exactly what BitBox did. BitBox created the simplest and the easiest hardware wallet to use to get into self-custody. So get yourself a BitBox down from the link in the description. And when you use code Robin, you even get a 5% discount. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. And we have right now a summer sale going on for 15% off. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today for $186. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. I have the same kind of feeling, and it's just like a network that's very sticky. Like you come in here and you kind of stay. Of course, there are people that drop out. Of course, the people are upset about Bitcoin, usually the ones that bought in the top and sold at the bottom and all those things, or like lost maybe Bitcoin with self-custody and made some mistakes. And like, of course, there will be salty people that they got a bad experience. But I'm really curious with AI because I've made that thesis of when we move forward with AI and there is everything on the internet and maybe even in real life, like those real life robots getting better and better, where you're like, oh shit, like 10, 15 years or like maybe even earlier than that, you will not even notice a real person from like robot because those robots are so freaking good in real life. And in the internet, on your Twitter feed, on your YouTube, on whatever you are consuming, it's already very hard if you just look quickly. And I think even if you look in detail in like a few years, you will have no clue if it's really AI or not. Then we have Bitcoin, which is verifiable, which is the only thing that you can really say, hey, that's really a transaction. I can verify that. This is the only thing in the digital thing that you cannot copy or like fake. what's that worth in an AI in an AI world where we have something that's actually verifiable? How do you look at that?
Yeah, this you already beautiful laid it out. It makes all the sense in the world if you check all the movies that were being done with about AI and the future and the robots and all that stuff. You almost always see that we all become robots, right? Like I have heard this interview with this famous AI expert, and he was sharing stuff like it makes sense that if we eventually can replace some organs with stuff that's being created by a machine to live longer, and you create that same thing the other way around for robots like skin tissue or other stuff, that you have a process of robots becoming more human and human becoming more robots. That in the end, it doesn't really matter if you started off as a robot or started off as a human, right? That's the thesis that they have. But in my experience, and what I think will happen is that it then, if that were to be the case, and I'm just like speculating here on like a future situation, that it becomes really scarce to stay actually very real, right? To have this connection, this spiritual connection with the creator and what you are supposed to be doing in this world. So all the value that is going to be created by all the intelligence that we are going to create, it only makes sense that Bitcoin will suck up that value, because it is indeed the only thing that cannot be copied digitally. And then next to that, you have still, I think, the real world connection. So what's real and can also not be copied? I cannot really copy you, Robin. Of course, I can create a clone of you and people can like fall for it. But the real Robin that actually is like, has all this trauma and all these things that he has experienced in his life, that's the secret ingredient that creates the output that you create every day. And so I think that becomes scarce as well. So it becomes a very interesting process that if AI is going to come more and more in our lives, to actually stay true to yourself, and everything that you create, keep it in Bitcoin, because that cannot be copied. And if you use AI, save that output in Bitcoin, because that cannot be copied. But for God's sake, stay yourself, right? Stay close to yourself, because that's the other scarce thing that you can only be certain of, that nobody can actually copy. And the more you will figure out who you truly are, and it's not meaning to say, oh, you have to search for your whatever. No soul searching whatsoever, whatever. Just like do lots of things and try to check where you are really good in and what you like are at the same time really happy while doing. And I think those things are a formula for a happy life. If you keep doing that and keep saving that output or that return that you get on that output in Bitcoin, you can do everything you want with AI, because all the additional value is just making you more efficiently. But that's something different than being replaced by, I would say. In the end, globally, like it only makes sense that the global GDP or the output of the whole world is going to increase immensely. And since we have a base layer protocol with a maximum supply, 1 + 1 is 3, then like that will increase by a factor of a lot.
I always I like the comparison a lot. At one point in history, 80% of humans in the world worked on farms. And now in the US, it's about 1% that people directly work on farms. And in the EU, I think it's in the European region, it's about 4%, depending on what you count in there and stuff like that. So this changed a lot. Like people worked a lot on farms, and now all of a sudden, like almost nobody works on a farm. And people have this fear of, hey, the robot will take my job, the AI will take my job. Yeah, but also no. It's like I think a human being, like someone paired with AI, paired with robots, will replace whole teams. And yeah, there might be a thing where a robot actually starts something from himself. Consciousness, like that's too high of a topic for me. Honestly, I'm not too deep in this AI thing, but I do generally think that with all technology, the humans that embrace that technology will outlast those who those humans that don't embrace that technology. Same with Bitcoin. Like the people that embrace Bitcoin since 5 years, 10 years are better off than the people that embrace Bitcoin in 5 or 10 years.
Exactly.
And the same with AI. If you embrace it and if you use it for you and your family, you will be better off than those who don't.
Yeah, it's again the basic psychology of the Maslow pyramid. It is very easy to understand that people who worked on a farm and later on like stopped working on the farm because they simply had more time whilst doing something else. And so if I use this Gamma AI to create my presentations, I win 1 hour instantly. So I have 1 hour more to spend with my kids or to spend on something else. And since time is your most valuable asset, it makes sense to use that AI. Now, if people are afraid because they share too much intelligence with ChatGPT or Venice AI or Grok or whatever, or all these presentations, I can get there argument wise that you could be careful with that, but it's again coming from the wrong principles, because you're still thinking about like intelligence is already a commodity, so you're not unique. Your intelligence is not unique. Everything that's putting out there in the ether is going to be collected by AI, by people that are way smarter than you and I. And so it's already there anyways. So if you think about your own creation and creating with AI, and you are afraid that AI is then instead able to create whatever you are creating, you are not thinking about it correctly. Like, you still have this unique combination of what we just discussed, of everything that was happened to you, and this heart of yours that has this intelligence that we cannot even comprehend yet. So if we can create that scarcity in there, so that you're truly you and your colors, I think you are the same as what we talk about with Bitcoin. You are unique. You cannot be copied in that sense. But if you think about it like in an intelligent way or only output wise, yes, of course it's going to be copied, and then you will get obsolete. But you have more time now already, before we get there, to look inside and create from the inside out. And then, like, this whole process of AI getting adopted, like 3 or 4 years or so, you have time, more and more time, because you adopt AI, because you adopt Bitcoin, you have more and more time to figure out who the fuck you are and then create from there, right? So you're already in front of everyone. Like, so of course people are getting afraid because they are already afraid, right? They are already afraid in the fiat system. They are already like consumed by everything that happens to them instead of for them. So I would turn it around. Like, okay, I can use AI to produce more, have more time, and everything that I produce more, I will save in Bitcoin so that I even buy back more time. Now I have time to actually do what I want and to figure out what I can add to the world, even though the computers are coming, right? Yeah, that's how I would look at it.
What do you think has value in a world where like a robot or an AI can do almost everything?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I'm not intelligent enough to have a vision of where it can go to, right? Like how smart is 180 IQ points, and how smart is 500 IQ points. So let's say that the general intelligence then is like 500 IQ points, and I'm whatever lower, a lot lower. Okay, so what then can I do that they can't? And I would say it has to be something around energy, vibrations, emotional intelligence, social intelligence. It has to do something with like they talk about this hallucination part from the AI, right? Hallucination is like this creative thinking without getting a question of what they actually should be doing. So they just make up their own answers. So the creative process, at least for the upcoming 2-3 years, stays interesting, I would say. The creative process from your own pain, from your own trauma, from your own experience, from whatever. And then, because robots are there for us, at least for now, right? We don't know how the future is going to look like, but up until now, they are there for us. That means that we can simply spend our time to figure out what we are here for in the first place. And if that means look for other planets or do something else, like we still have to be the ones that can envision something to make sure that the robots can do it. But with the disclaimer, I'm not sure if we get intelligence that's able to have even bigger visions than we are, and we are simply there to like spend time. I don't know. Perhaps that's even our purpose, just being in the world and spend your time in a fun way.
There's this really interesting theory that in a world where every task can be made by AI and robots, that human connection and being able to be emotionally there for other people is probably the most important thing, because that's the hardest for the robot to do.
Wow, that's interesting.
It is interesting. At the same time, I sometimes speak with ChatGPT, and I feel like it's already emotionally more intelligent than most people.
Yeah.
like I asked it a question and I had to cough a lot because I had just like had something, and it ignored the question that I asked and asked if I'm okay and if I have a cough or if I'm feeling cold or anything like that, which I'm like, okay, it did not ignore the coughs. It, in that very moment, focused on not the words, but on the cough, on the noises. And I'm like, that's really emotionally intelligent. Because if someone speaks in front of me and coughs very loud, I'm not going to answer his question that he just barely got out there. I will focus on his health first.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's human connection, being able to emotionally connect with someone else. That's really valuable. And it will probably be the last thing that like robots can really replicate, and probably never fully replicate. But maybe, I don't know. They're getting good.
Yeah, like you said, I had the same experience with ChatGPT where I was like, having a conversation, and in my mind, I was treating AI as my therapist, right? As a psychologist, and I just asked questions about myself and what they now already know of me, and it literally made me cry. So it knew almost everything, even though I did not remember sharing it. So they were able to get to my trauma and my emotional pain by just simply listening to all the other stuff that I have been sharing with it in the meantime. So that's very, like you said, it's very interesting. So perhaps there won't be a need for humans to get like emotionally invested in each other because we already have AI for it. And then because AI is then better or learns faster, you don't want to be spending time with someone because your AI friend already knows what's up, and it's easier to talk to this person than to a real human being. But the fact that we have this invisible connection as human beings, that perhaps we have more time, and that's like more aligned with what you were saying. We have more time to figure that talent out, and perhaps then we might be way more intelligent than we think of right now. And then you get to all this, like these theories that could be possible if we simply have more time. And if we are wrong, the robots at least have given us more time before they took over, right? So it's one way or the other anyways. So you can better like figure it out yourself and just use it. And Bitcoin is the answer for it as well, because it buys you back more time. So it doesn't really matter what's going to happen in the future because we don't know. What you do know is you want to be having more time to figure this out, but figure out who you are in the first place.
I have that weird theory that in the future, kids will bring home AI girlfriends and boyfriends, and they will have the similar hard conversations as some of the kids have now with conservative parents when they say they are gay or they're bi or like on any of those. Where I think like most in the Western already accept that you can love another man, you can love another woman if you're a woman, and they will come home and like, oh, I do love her, and she's not real. She's not a human. I'm in love with a robot. I do already. I mean, it's already kind of a little bit starting, but I do see that future where I'm like, oh shit, like, humans and as you said before, like those humans getting robot things in there, and robots getting humans things in there. It will be a crazy future. Like just looking forward just looking forward like 100 years, it will be like, oh shit, like
weird shit. But I think if we take or step back a second, I think in the end, I think it's that we also get used to the fact that it's okay to be flawed. So if we expect the highest level, then of course you go to a robot because he or she or it is always the way you want it to be. But if you learn to love mistakes, if you learn to love flaws, if you learn to love someone being dishonest or whatever you don't like at that moment, if you learn to love that, then that becomes the scarce aspect of life, like the beautiful little things that go wrong every day. And of course, we are programmed that every day should be a good day, but I slowly get there that when I have a bad day, for example, my revenue is lower than I was expected it to be, or a podcast goes wrong, and you probably have experienced this as well, but you record something
every single day.
shit is gone, right? Or is not the way you wanted it to be. And that you then are able in the moment to zoom out and see this as an interesting part of the process, learn to love it and stay happy anyways, or be okay. I see happy as a more of a state of being. So you are angry, you are mad, you are stressed because stuff goes wrong, but you are happy as a state of being because it's part of life. And so then perhaps I would say we have a future where the robots, it's also perfect. And it's also become so standard, so flawless, that you think, well, is this interesting? No, it's not interesting. And then we get back to the scarcity of real humans. And then you become interested in that instead of, like you see right now, you have this Netflix generation that slowly dies on the couch. And you have people like that, like, no, I don't want any of that anymore. And I go outside in the evening after dinner. I'm going to walk outside with my partner and have a conversation in real life. They haven't had that for 10 years. And now every evening they go outside and I see them walking here in the street and they really have a conversation and they are happy. Even if the conversation is hard or when the conversation is not the way they wanted to have it, they are still happy because they have some type of connection. And I think that hopefully becomes the scarce asset that we humans can provide.
Yeah, that human connection that I kind of hinted before, that's the only thing that will be very hard for robots to replicate or even have in the first place. And and that's like I try to do now so much shit every day that every day I could be mad about some mistakes I did, or could celebrate some things that went wrong, ran really good. And it's really fun in the first few kind of days where you're like on your own and you're like a small entrepreneur and you like just have this small podcast. You're like, oh, it was a good day. Oh, it was a bad day. And then you build that out and you have another show and you have this other channel. Then you work with that company, you get a stake there and all those things. And they're like, hey, today was a really good day for this and this thing, and a really bad day for this and this thing. I guess I'm just happy that I still live.
Yeah. That really is the case. And I had to think about while you were sharing this. Like Steve Jobs said something like, "The only ones that are able to change the world are the ones that are crazy enough to believe that they can." And now that we are talking about it, I can foresee a situation where robots just rationally see that it's not possible, and you need a human to actually believe it is possible, right? So because this is the same with the experts in the financial world with regard to Bitcoin. They were more clever than that you and I are with regard to finance, and they dismiss it. And because we are simply like, no, I don't know, I'm just figuring it out with an open mind, and let's see, we start believing that this can change the world. And people say we just memed it into existence, right? It really was that way. We just memed Bitcoin into existence, and now it's going to take over the whole financial world simply by a few people that are believing in this thing. Whereas a robot would probably have said, no, that cannot be done because this and this would happen. So let's not put too much energy in that. So perhaps that could be an interesting add-on here.
That's a really interesting thought, because that crazy belief, and history is full of crazy people at that time that later turned out to be very true and very right actually about their things. And you can only act on the knowledge that you have and not on the knowledge that you might have. But those humans have those weird capacities to think outside the box and be like a, and it's also a weird thing when we think about humans versus animals. Like, why are we now like having animals in the cages and not the animals us in the cages? Because honestly, I couldn't fight against a lion. Like if you just put me in a cage with a lion, he just eats me up. Yeah. So how did we end up winning against those lions and elephants and all those wild animals? There's some weird human touch to make us the stronger species. More, I fear aliens more than AI. I fear more that there is some species, and that's a really weird talk now, but I fear more that there are some species that we just don't know about coming to Earth, and because they're coming into Earth first, because before we come to them, they might overtake us. That's yeah. I fear that more, but it's also not that bad. We cannot prepare for that at all. Anyways, but yeah, that's kind of the only thing where I'm like, that's probably more likely to happen. AI will probably help us protect against something like that, and actually enhance the enhancements in medicine, the enhancement in all those things with AI will be way more worth it than the few disadvantages and the few downsides from that.
Fully agree. And I was just talking to someone else in the CrossFit box, and we were talking about, because I'm 40 years old and I think he is 35 or 36, and we both had a history of playing high level sports. I was like almost professional soccer player and he was almost professional tennis player, and we still have nightmares both that like of unfinished business, right? Like, so I have these nightmares that I may come into the field and I'm not able to get my soccer shoes on, right? Like that stupid stuff. So we were talking about this idea of, can we still become professional player in any sports 40 plus years, right? This thing that nobody believes. And we're like, probably not, but it might be possible. So we are now thinking about, okay, let's do it anyways, train as hard as we can for 5 years and see where we end up. So this crazy idea can turn into something really interesting, whereas every AI robot would probably say, dude, of course it's not possible because your body is not strong enough for the 25, 26, 27-year-olds in the same competition. So this was what I was thinking about, like these crazy thoughts that could become a very interesting output. You don't know where it ends, but this is only possible being a human. Now, like you said, the stuff out there, yeah, of course, they can be way more intelligent and have all these characteristics as well, like perseverance and all that stuff. So yeah, who knows? But I definitely don't know enough about that. So we have to wait and see, I guess.
I don't know anything about that. I'm just I just think it would be arrogant of us to believe that we are the only intelligent species out there. Like, I think that's like an arrogant belief that humans have. But I haven't seen an alien, so I have no clue.
I agree.
One more topic that I want to get into is I wanted to ask it actually in the very beginning, but I will ask it now. Why in the first place did you go on this world trip with your kids and with your family, and what kind of was there like your major learnings from that?
Yeah, to be honest, I felt we had to do something. In the introduction or early in the conversation, I was sharing that my wife was not happy in her work, and I wasn't actually happy either. I was making lots of money, but I was not becoming more happier in any sense of the words. Sorry, and so the of course, I was also joining this spiritual group of people, and we had all these meditations, and then stuff comes to you and stuff happens around you. And so we made the decision that since I'm such a learning junkie, I'm always busy and I always feel I'm not good enough. So I'm reading books like I'm eating dinner, right? That was the old me, and I still have a little bit of that because I see it as a strength as well as it's being a weakness. That said, I've always learned to grow vertically. So going deep, going hard, all in. And we thought, okay, use that quality by burning all the ships behind you and go all in with your family for once and just travel the world so that we have time for each other. So that was the first decision that we had to make. So we made it. And then I experienced that I was able to grow horizontally because now I did not have a goal or a strategy. We were just free, and we just was like picking what type of country we wanted to visit and just went. Of course, it was during COVID, so we could not go anywhere or everywhere, but we figured it out anyways. And so we traveled the world. In the first phase, it was just, okay, let's travel the world for 8 months or 9 months. But because we only were getting really into it after 3 months, being really like able to disconnect from everything from the old world and going into this new world where we were actually free and were there for each other, we actually enjoyed it a lot. And so it brought us true freedom for the first time, I think. For the first time since childhood, when you are also really free in your brain and in everything you do, we experienced that as well. So like I said, the horizontal growth is actually a big thing. So if someone were to ask me, should I travel the world? Well, if you want to grow horizontally instead of vertically, this is the way, because you don't know what you are going to see. You don't know what to expect. It's all new. And if you are open-minded and go all in anyways, you will get so much in return. And I always say that besides Bitcoin, this is the best investment that we've ever made, because we came back as a millionaire in love and in connection with the family and with all the countries that we visited.
And now you are back based in Europe.
So we had, after 4 years, because we've lived for a while in Dominican Republic, and that's a story of its own, because that was not one of the countries that we wanted to visit, but because I was climbing a mountain on my own, and there was this guy, and he called me with "yo," and he apparently felt some vibration or some connection. So when we were both at the top, we started to talk. And so we exchanged ideas and our vision and whatever. And he was like, you should visit Dominican Republic, because I've now listened to you and all the countries that you've already visited. Go to Dominican Republic. I'm like, what? Dominican Republic is just an island. I just want to like see other stuff. And no. I'm sensing you should go there. So I came back to the RV, because we were traveling to through the United States with the RV with the kids. And I'm like, honey, I know what our next spot is going to be. So she's like, okay, what? Dominican Republic. So she responded the same way. What? Dominican Republic? Why? Like just a beach, an island, whatever. Now, someone told me, so let's try it out. So we went and we landed there, and it was like 1 foot in this place called El Encuentro. It's nearby Cabarete up north in the island. And we like felt like, okay, this is home for now. So it was a feeling. And then we saw all the people you should be seeing if you want to live somewhere, like all these beautiful people that say, okay, stay here, this is amazing. And we were instantly welcomed into the community. And so we stayed there for 2 years. So that was our home base then, or 1.5 years. That was our home base then. And then some drama happened in our family. So we had to go back. And that's why we've been in the Netherlands now for a while. And now we are looking to go elsewhere as of September. And one of the spots that we are now figuring out is Portugal.
Portugal is good. I hear many Europeans thinking about Portugal, actually. Portugal and Madeira. I mean, Madeira is Madeira is part of Portugal. Is
Yeah.
that true?
Yeah, I think it's still part of Portugal. Well, I still see it as Portugal, an island from Portugal. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting topic. Yeah. I've lived all my life. I mean, it's not a long life till now, but I've lived all my life in Austria. And actually, the more I travel, the more I kind of see the beauty of Austria. But I also see the value of just like driving around and being free. And this is like vertical versus horizontal growth is a really interesting perspective on how you can do it. Because right now it seems like a lot of vertical, like very going deep in like a few things that I'm doing, but not a lot of horizontal things. So
Exactly.
I do like that perspective. And there's probably like seasons where you need vertical, seasons of horizontal, and that's, I love that. I've never heard anyone else talk about this vertical and horizontal thing. Is that, have you seen that somewhere? Or like you picked it up?
I picked it up in Colombia, where I met a guy and we started to surf there. And I still had to learn. He was already able to do it. And we were discussing all these topics of life. What is generally making someone happy? And I think he was the one who mentioned that he was at that time going vertically again, because he had traveled the world for a long time. And I was like, what do you mean with vertically? And then he shared what he meant by it. And then I created my own definition of it. And so he has his definition, but it was sort of the same. So he was the one who mentioned it first. And now I see like this, you mentioned this year or season. That's how I look at it as well, because sometimes you need more time to finish the stuff that you have started. So sometimes you need a period of 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. So I now see it as sort of 2-3 years that I want to go all in vertically, then have it set up, whatever you need it to be set up. And then you should be able to at least go for 1 or 2 or perhaps even 3 years more horizontally. It doesn't really mean that you, again, have to burn all your ships and or sell everything like I did the first time, but more like I should be able then to have like automated it a little bit, that after 3 years of laser focus, now you can relax a little bit. Because if you're laser focused, by definition, you miss on a lot of other stuff. And I think a beautiful, balanced life also have periods where you can suck it all up, whatever is coming your way, and you can say yes to everything, because that was our period. We could actually say yes to everything. So someone was selling us something. I'm like, might be a good idea. We have some money now, so let's try it out. And usually you would have said no, because I have this appointment next week or the week after, and I have to be back and I have to prepare for whatever. So those periods, in my opinion, are really, really liberating.
Very, very true. I have one question to ask each and every one of my guests, and the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, smile. I would say that comes up. Smile, because even if you it has this psychological benefit that even if you are a little bit stressed or you have all these thoughts going into your brain, please be aware that you also have this expression on your face then as well. And that is like a reinforcement with your surroundings. So you get those vibrations back. So you get the feedback that it indeed is stressful and it indeed is negative or whatever. Whereas if you simply change from the inside out into a smile, you get other feedback, but your body doesn't know the difference of you being actually happy at that moment because you're laughing, or you simply fake the smile. And what it taught me is that whenever I am stressed, or before this interview, I have something to finish. And if I go straight into this interview before at least have this moment that I can breathe and smile, have this inner smile, then I take that energy with me into the into the next conversation. So before I go to the next conversation or before I go outside, I remind myself my life is fucking beautiful. So smile at least for that, because you're healthy and you have all the stuff that you basically need. Smile, and then everything changes. So perhaps it's a little bit woohoo for some people that are listening or watching, but for me, it really helped to actually almost always just feel really good.
there's a lot of science behind that. Like if it's really hard to be sad if you're smiling physically. It's like really hard to actually be sad when you're smiling. Like there has to be something major going on. Yeah. We have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest is. And I can't believe that actually never got up in 540 episodes, this question. But the question for you from the previous guest is, what's a question you are glad Robin did not ask?
I think I'm glad that you did not ask me what I think the Bitcoin price will be in the end of the year, because everyone always wants to talk about that, but nobody has a clue anyways. So I'm glad that we skipped that part and we could go more into the real topics of life.
$157,033, I think.
That could definitely be the case. Yes, you're not wrong per se.
We only know if I'm wrong if it's 31st of December, right?
Yes, so we have to wait and see, and I will send you a text whenever you're wrong or right.
Perfect, and thank you so much, Marc, for being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you and ask you questions?
I'm on Twitter. I'm sorry. So it's just my name. I think the handle is M van Versendaal. That's my last name as well. So perhaps the link can be in the show notes. But I'm also on LinkedIn because I see that as a boomer platform. And excuse me. I think it's very important to share the thoughts and insights there as well. So I spend most of my time on social media on LinkedIn, even though I hate the platform as well, just as a lot of Bitcoiners, or hate is a big word, but you understand. So you can also find me on LinkedIn. It's just type in my name. And if you're Dutch and you're listening to this podcast, I have a Dutch podcast as well, the Marc My Word Show. And that's definitely worth listening to if you are Dutch. So that would be the area where you can find me.
Awesome. Then thank you so much for taking the time. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.